It was just past 7 a.m. when I stepped out onto my porch, still in my flannel pajamas and worn-out boots, coffee mug in hand. The sky was quiet, the air cool, typical for a peaceful morning in my corner of the American countryside. But the sound I heard wasn't birds or wind through the trees. It was diesel engines, loud ones, several of them. I walked slowly down my gravel driveway, eyes narrowing with every step. And that's when I saw it. 6 massive cement trucks crawling up my private road like they owned the place. They weren't even trying to be discreet. The first one had already started spinning its drum, ready to pour. Behind them stood a woman with a clipboard, barking orders and pointing like a wannabe movie director. She wore oversized sunglasses, a tight pastel blouse, and a smugness that could curdle milk. Marco, that was Karen, the HOA president of the brand new Whispering Bluff subdivision that had been sprouting up just beyond my ridge. She was waving at the trucks, motioning them to back into position like this was her construction site. I stood there frozen for a second, not out of fear, out of disbelief. She spotted me and marched over, clipboard still in hand. "Good morning," she said as if we were old friends catching up over brunch. "We're just going to need access for a quick cement pour. Shouldn't take more than an hour." I didn't say a word. I just reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the notarized letter I'd had drafted 2 weeks ago. I held it up without a word. Her expression didn't change. Yet. "This again?" she scoffed. "We had verbal permission. The trucks are already here." I didn't blink. "You never had permission. Not verbal, not legal. This is private property, and I suggest you tell your crew to reverse before they find themselves in trouble." She turned back to the trucks, ignoring me completely. "Oh," and then, without warning, I tapped the remote in my other hand. The solar-powered gate I'd installed just off the main road started sliding shut behind the last truck. It made a heavy metallic clang as it hit the gravel and locked into place. There was a half-second pause. Then one of the drivers muttered, Is that supposed to happen?" Karen spun around just in time to see the red access revoked light flash. Her face dropped like she'd seen a ghost. For the first time since I'd met her, she wasn't talking. She was frozen, her mouth slightly open, clipboard limp at her side, like a raccoon caught in headlights. I looked past her at the line of trucks now trapped on my property. My land. My road. And no way out. The lead driver stepped down from his cab and looked at me. "Are we stuck here now?" I took a slow sip of my coffee, never breaking eye contact. "Looks like it." Karen started pacing in tight circles, whipping out her phone and dialing someone with frantic fingers. I heard pieces of her conversation, words like legal action, misunderstanding, county approval. But it was all noise because in that moment, it didn't matter what she said. She'd already made her move, and I'd already made mine. See, what she didn't know was that everything, every truck, every step onto my gravel, every panicked shout, was being recorded. The trail cam mounted to the fence post had a perfect angle. I didn't need to argue. I didn't need to yell. All I had to do was watch her unravel. The trucks idled, confused. The drivers glanced at each other, then at me. But none of them made a move. Karen finally walked back to the lead truck and started whispering frantically to the driver, pointing at me, then at her phone. He didn't look convinced. I didn't care, because while Karen thought this was just another day of pushing her way into whatever she wanted, I knew better. This wasn't just a morning inconvenience. This was a full-blown invasion, an attempt to take something that didn't belong to her. And today was the day she realized she'd picked the wrong road to mess with. 2 weeks before the cement trucks rolled in, life had been exactly the way I wanted it. Quiet, clean, undisturbed. My morning started with hot coffee on the front porch, watching fog lift off the ridge like a curtain. No honking cars, no barking dogs, no power tools screaming into the air. Just trees, dirt, and the occasional hawk soaring above the treetops. I hadn't moved out here for luxury. I'd moved out here for peace, and I had earned it. That's why the bright pink survey flags caught my eye immediately. They weren't supposed to be there. They waved in the breeze like little insults, staked along the edge of my driveway, each one a warning sign dressed as plastic. I followed the flags slowly, mug in hand, walking the half-mile stretch of my private gravel road until I reached the main entrance that connected to the public highway. That's where I saw her for the first time. White SUV idling, hazard lights blinking like it was in distress. A woman in khaki capris and a designer blouse stood outside it, pointing at my road while speaking to a man in a neon construction vest. She didn't even notice me at first. When she finally did, she straightened her posture and put on a plastic smile. "Good morning. I'm Karen, president of the Whispering Bluffs Homeowners Association." She said it like it was a military rank. I glanced at the flags, then at the man beside her, then back at her. "This is private property," I said flatly. She waved dismissively. "Technically, your road falls within an easement zone, and we're just requesting temporary access for some construction vehicles. Emergency schedule issue. We're behind on a couple of builds." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. "No," I said, calm and clear. She tilted her head. "The county said it shouldn't be a problem." "Then let the county confirm that it's not a problem," I replied. She opened her mouth like she had more to say, but couldn't find the words. So I turned around and walked away. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. 2 days later, I came home from town and saw tire tracks on the gravel. Deep ones. Fresh ones. A backhoe sat halfway down my driveway like it was taking a nap. Behind it, a landscaping truck idled with its engine humming. And then I saw the porta potty. 2 workers were unloading it, right across from my mailbox, like this was a public job site. I didn't scream. I didn't curse. I just stood there, coffee in hand, mouth slightly open. That kind of disbelief where the world slows down, and the only thing tethering you to reality is the ceramic handle of your cup. "Who told you to come here?" I asked one of the workers. He shrugged. "Karen." Like that explained everything. That night I went into full war mode. I pulled out every piece of documentation I had: parcel maps, title deeds, easement records, county surveys. I laid them across my dining table like battle plans, and every single one confirmed what I already knew. This land was mine. The driveway, the surrounding road, the entire stretch right up to the edge of the public line. There was no shared access, no conditional clause, no public right-of-way. Still, I didn't want to leave room for misinterpretation. The next morning, I had a notarized letter drafted by a local attorney, clearly stating that no HOA member, contractor, or associate had permission to access, enter, or use any part of my road, for any reason. I printed 2 copies. I drove over to Karen's brand new house at the edge of the Whispering Bluffs development and hand-delivered it myself. She answered the door with that same smug smile. "Thanks," she said without even looking at the letter. And then she shut the door. That should have been the end of it. But I could tell by her smirk, it wasn't. It was just the beginning. Because the next day I found my mailbox ripped from the ground, gravel torn up like someone had done donuts on it, and, just to rub it in, a laminated sign zip-tied to a post right where my property line began. It read, "Future Access Point, Whispering Bluffs. Thank you for your cooperation." That was the moment it hit me. This wasn't confusion. It wasn't miscommunication. It was war. I stopped talking to her after that sign. No more emails, no more confrontations. I didn't respond to the flyers she left in my mailbox or the HOA newsletters with thinly veiled jabs about uncooperative neighbors. She wanted to keep pushing? Let her. I had other plans. I called an old friend, a contractor who owed me a favor, and in less than 48 hours, he showed up with a crew. They installed a solar-powered, motorized gate just inside my property line where my gravel road met the public street. Heavy-duty steel, fast closing time, no room for last-minute escapes. While they worked, I ordered trail cams and motion sensors, discreetly placed on trees and fence posts. This wasn't just a boundary anymore. This was security, evidence, and Karen didn't even know it yet. I waited, and then, just like clockwork, the trucks came. 6 cement trucks, Loud, heavy, arrogant. They pulled onto my road like it belonged to them. One of them even had its drum already spinning, like they were going to start pouring concrete before breakfast. Karen stood at the front, clipboard in hand, barking instructions like she was running a film set. She wasn't even looking at me when I walked up, just kept pointing and shouting. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I held up the notarized letter again. The lead driver blinked. You're telling me this isn't HOA property? Nope, it's mine. Always has been, and I have legal proof. He shifted uncomfortably. But she said. I turned slowly, looked into the trail cam, and waved. Karen stopped mid-sentence. She turned, saw the camera, then saw the red light flashing. And that's when the gate started closing. One by one, the trucks got locked in, trapped behind a wall of metal. They weren't going anywhere. Karen's face turned from pink to ghost white. She started making calls, mumbling about trespassing and legal gray areas. But none of that mattered now. She was done pretending. And just when I thought the scene couldn't get any more ridiculous, one of the older construction workers walked over. He looked tired, like he'd seen a few too many shady contracts in his career. You might want to check with zoning, he muttered. They submitted development plans using your parcel number. Says here the road's part of their project. I froze. What did you say? Blueprints list your road like it's part of the HOA layout. I thought you knew. I didn't reply. I just stood there, coffee going cold in my hand, as the realization slammed into me. This wasn't just trespassing. This was fraud. Karen hadn't just overstepped. She'd filed official county documents that claimed my private road as part of her HOA's construction plan. She forged it into her blueprint like it already belonged to her. And if I hadn't installed that gate, if I hadn't caught it on camera, she might have gotten away with it. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at my desk, laptop open, pouring through the county zoning portal. It was a mess, broken links, outdated PDFs, but I'd worked in GIS mapping years ago. I knew where to dig. I searched for permits filed under Whispering Bluffs HOA. It took an hour, and then I found it. A scanned PDF titled Access Road Construction Approved Plans. My stomach dropped. Right there, in bold black letters, my parcel number, my road, highlighted, labeled as Approved Entry Route. No agreement, no contract, no signature from me. Just stolen. I stared at the screen, jaw tight. She didn't just bend the rules, she rewrote the entire map. Like I didn't exist, like my property was just another empty patch of dirt to pave over. It was criminal, and it was personal. The next morning, I called the county zoning office. After being transferred 3 times, I finally got someone who sounded halfway competent. I explained everything, calm, detailed, professional. I gave them my parcel number, the document link, and the dates. There was a pause on the other end, a long one. Then he sighed. We've had issues with that HOA, he said quietly. You'll need to file a formal complaint, but I'll flag this for immediate review. I thanked him, hung up, and filed the complaint that same hour. I attached every shred of evidence, property deed, notarized letter, camera footage, and screenshots of the fraudulent blueprint with my parcel misused. 2 copies, one for the zoning board, one for my own records. Because I knew Karen wasn't going to back down. She wasn't just stubborn, she was dangerous. 3 days after I filed the complaint, a beige sedan pulled into my driveway. The man who stepped out wore a wrinkled suit and held a large manila envelope like it was radioactive. He looked like someone who hated his job, but hated confrontation even more. You Mr. Carter? He asked. I nodded. He handed me the envelope without eye contact. You've been served. I almost laughed. Karen had officially filed for a temporary injunction, a legal attempt to force construction access through my road. According to the paperwork, I was willfully obstructing critical development infrastructure and causing undue financial strain on the Whispering Bluffs community. I read it once, then again. Not because I didn't understand it, but because I couldn't believe how far she was willing to go. The language was dramatic, Words like emergency, timeline, community hardship, all designed to make her sound like some kind of suburban martyr. But the best part? Attached to the packet was an email from the county zoning office, and in it, one line made everything crystal clear. Pending investigation into potential parcel misuse. She had accidentally handed me official evidence. The zoning office had already flagged her project for potential fraud. She put that sentence inside her legal complaint. I couldn't have scripted it better. Still, I wasn't going to take chances. I called Sam, a zoning attorney I'd worked with years ago during a messy land boundary case. He owed me a favor, and I was ready to cash it in. He showed up that evening with a grin on his face and read through the injunction like it was a bad sitcom script. "This is trash," he said, "but we'll respond, just to make sure it gets tossed clean." We worked through the night on a 3-page rebuttal, tight, fact-loaded, and unforgiving. We attached copies of everything: my deed, the notarized letter, screenshots of the blueprints, timestamps from the trail cam, and emails from the zoning office. Sam even added a formal accusation of abuse of legal process just to twist the knife. The hearing was scheduled within the week. It was held in a small county courtroom with wood paneling and fluorescent lights that buzzed like angry wasps. I walked in wearing clean jeans and a tucked-in flannel. Karen was already seated, dressed in pearls, ballet flats, and a pastel suit that screamed, "I'm the victim here." She carried a thick binder overflowing with documents that had nothing to do with the case. The judge, an older man with tired eyes and a no-nonsense expression, flipped through her filing. He didn't even bother looking up before saying, "This is a matter of private property rights." Karen's lawyer stood up, young, nervous. He rattled off a list of grievances, accusing me of malicious obstruction, bad faith, and even emotional distress caused to HOA members. I didn't say a word. When it was my turn, I walked to the front, placed my binder on the table, and asked, "Permission to submit Exhibit A?" Inside was everything, the full paper trail, all of it legally dated and cross-referenced. The judge didn't say a word for a long time. He just flipped page after page. Then he sat back, looked straight at Karen and said, "Ma'am, you cannot file permits using land you don't own and expect no one to notice. Injunction denied." Karen stood up, tried to interrupt. "But Your Honor, this road has always been the logical access. This is not a zoning hearing." He cut her off sharply. "This is small claims, and you brought no valid claim." He slammed the folder shut. "Next case." She stormed out of the courtroom without even glancing my way. I didn't chase her. I didn't gloat. I just walked back to my truck, windows down, music playing, and a calm I hadn't felt in weeks washing over me. I thought maybe, just maybe, that was the end. But I forgot one thing. Karen doesn't lose. She reloads. For a few days after court, it was quiet. Too quiet. Karen didn't show up. No trucks, no workers, no porta potties. Even the flyers stopped coming. I knew better than to believe it was over. People like her don't retreat. They regroup. Then the drone showed up. I was in the backyard trimming brush along the fence line when I heard the hum. Faint at first, like a mosquito, but it got louder, hovering just above the tree line near the entrance to my private road. At first, I thought maybe it was a curious kid from the neighborhood, but it came back the next day, and again the day after that. Same pattern, same flight path, always around the same area, right above my gate. That wasn't coincidence. I called the FAA regional office to ask if there were any registered flights over my property. The rep checked and said there were no authorized drones or aerial permits in that zone. "Would you like to file a surveillance complaint?" he asked. I paused. "No," I said, "not yet." Instead, I walked to the end of my driveway and put up a sign, in cardboard, black marker. One message: "Drone operator, send me a copy. The county will want to see it too." The drone didn't come back after that, but Karen did. I was clearing brush near the fence again when I heard tires crunching on gravel. I turned, and there she was. Karen. Same sunglasses, same expression. But this time there was something colder behind her eyes. Behind her sat a beat-up sedan, engine running. Inside, a man in business casual slouched in the passenger seat, staring at the dashboard like he wanted to disappear. Karen didn't say hello. She launched straight into her speech like she'd been practicing in front of a mirror. "The HOA is offering to purchase access rights to your road," she said, "and we're prepared to be more than fair with compensation." I raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean by fair?" She named a number. It was laughable. I did laugh, out loud. She didn't. Then she added, "It would be easier if you agreed, before this becomes complicated." I paused. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I was deciding whether she had just threatened me or if she really believed she was negotiating. I stepped forward slowly. No deal, no talks, no access. She opened her mouth to speak again, but I raised my hand and pointed toward the new lot I had quietly purchased, the one right at the public access point. While she was busy filing legal nonsense, I had bought the only entry strip that connected her development to the road. And that lot now had a chain-link fence, concrete footers, steel posts, and a remote camera mounted high above, fully secured, completely locked. The camera blinked red. Karen followed my finger and saw the gate, then the camera, then the lock. She didn't speak. Her jaw clenched. Her breathing shifted. The man in the sedan stepped out, muttered something about time to go, and gently tugged at her arm. She turned away silent. Didn't say a word. Didn't look back. They left the way they came, slow, silent, and stuck in the reality they never planned for. By the time they disappeared behind the curve, I was already updating the camera footage. Everything she said, every look, every second, it was saved. Just in case. Because I knew this wasn't her last move. This was the calm before her next storm. And this time, I wasn't just prepared. I was 10 steps ahead. It started with a letter. Short, polite, but sharp enough to draw blood. The county zoning board had completed their review. Whispering Bluffs, HOA, was officially cited for multiple violations: misuse of parcel data, failure to disclose landowner objections, attempted development on private property, and most importantly, pending reassessment of their entire construction permit. Translation? Karen's dream development was now buried in red tape. No access, no trucks, no road, no go. I read the letter twice just to feel it again. It was the kind of victory that didn't need fireworks, just silence. But then came the part I didn't expect. The community turned. Not everyone, not all at once, but slowly they started peeling away from Karen's carefully built image. The HOA newsletters stopped mentioning me. The passive-aggressive signs vanished. And then quietly, the notes started showing up in my mailbox. Handwritten, anonymous. Some apologizing, others just explaining. One note said, "She never told us it wasn't her land." That one made me laugh out loud. I wasn't the villain anymore. Now I was the guy who fought back. And the neighborhood, some of them at least, were starting to realize who the real problem was. Then someone dumped gravel across the new gate one night. Not a lot, just enough to block it awkwardly. Like a message. I checked the footage. It was too dark, too blurry to ID anyone. But I had my suspicions. I didn't call the sheriff. Instead, I uploaded the video to a local online forum with a caption, "Someone made a mess. Hope they come clean it up." 2 days later, the gravel was gone. No one said a word. But the tension, it lingered. You could feel it in the air. At the grocery store, people who used to wave avoided eye contact. Some whispered behind shelves. One guy in a baseball cap muttered "troublemaker" under his breath as he passed. That was fine. I wasn't here for popularity. I was here for peace. And peace in America means drawing boundaries and enforcing them. So I did. I went back to the access lot and gave it a proper makeover. Native shrubs, stone garden path, a couple of birdhouses, even a hand-carved wooden plaque that read, "Private family green space, no access beyond this point." It looked peaceful, charming, almost welcoming, unless you knew the backstory. Then it looked like the most beautiful middle finger ever planted in soil. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that Karen had one last move left. People like her don't disappear. They wait. They plot. They look for a loophole. That's why when I saw the county assessor's SUV parked just beyond the ridge one afternoon, I didn't assume the worst, but I didn't assume the best either. I walked up, introduced myself, and asked what brought him out. Mid-40s, calm, professional. He smiled politely and said they were reevaluating parcels related to Whispering Bluffs due to recent development complications. I nodded. Just as he was about to leave, he glanced toward the fenced lot and said, "You know, there's a rumor the HOA is planning to challenge your parcel designation. Claim it was zoned incorrectly." I didn't flinch. Let them try. I had a binder full of documents, original plats, zoning board statements, timestamps, trail cam footage, enough to bury every false claim she could dream up. He smiled. Didn't think they'd get far, but they're trying. He got in his SUV and drove off. That night, I pulled all my records into one place, labeled, indexed, and triple backed up. Because if Karen really wanted to play her final card, I was going to make sure it hit her like a boomerang. 2 mornings later, I got another registered letter. Karen had filed a new complaint, this time in small claims court, accusing me of obstructing community access and causing financial damage to public development. It was laughable. But I didn't laugh. I brewed myself a fresh cup of coffee, walked out to the gate, looked into the trail cam, and smiled. She was back for round 4. But this time, I wasn't just ready. I was ahead. When I walked into the small courtroom, I carried a black binder under my arm like it was a birthday present. Inside was everything, labeled, tabbed, dated. I wasn't here to argue. I was here to end it. Karen was already seated at the plaintiff's table, flipping through a chaotic folder stuffed with random documents like she was hoping one of them would suddenly become useful. Her new lawyer was younger than the last one, nervous, sweating, clearly realizing too late that his client was a walking liability. The judge looked like a man who'd already seen too many petty neighbor disputes before lunch. He didn't even look up when he called the case. Karen's lawyer stood up, cleared his throat, and began reading from his notes. Words like malicious intent, obstruction, sabotage. He accused me of planting shrubs to block public utility access. He claimed my green space was a camouflage tactic. He even threw in emotional harm to community morale. I let him finish. Then I stood, calm and quiet. I walked up to the table and placed my binder in front of the judge. Exhibit A, I said, includes original parcel deed, notarized denial of access, county zoning investigation results, timestamped security footage, and a certified letter confirming that Whispering Bluffs HOA was cited for fraudulent land representation. I paused. And one final statement, dated last week, from the zoning board itself. The judge opened it, read silently, and blinked slowly. Karen's lawyer blinked too, like he just realized he was holding a knife at a gunfight. The judge sighed, rubbed his forehead, and looked at Karen. "Miss Karen," he said, voice dry, "this is not a zoning hearing. This is small claims court, and you brought nothing valid to support your accusations." She tried to speak, some prepared speech about community impact and development progress, but he raised a hand. "Case dismissed. Please do not return to this courtroom with issues already ruled on by higher authority." Just like that, it was over. Or so I thought. I walked out feeling like I had just closed the last chapter in a book I never wanted to read. But Karen wasn't done. She was waiting for me in the parking lot. Standing by her car like some HOA final boss, arms crossed, sunglasses perched on her head like a cheap tiara. She didn't say anything, just stared. So I said the only thing left to say. "You're done, Karen. Go home. Build your own road. Leave mine alone." She squinted. "You think you've won? The board is still on my side, and if I go, someone worse will replace me." I smiled. "Good. Let them try. At least now they'll know where the line is." She didn't reply. She got in her car, slammed the door, and drove off without looking back. That week, something shifted. Not in Karen, but in her community. Whispers spread, rumors, stories from the courtroom, from people who finally saw the full picture. A man in a dusty pickup flagged me down one evening near the ridge. "You the guy who blocked the trucks?" he asked. I nodded. He nodded back. "Good. She's been lying to us since day one." Later, a woman with a stroller came to the gate, said she never knew Karen was using private land, said she was sorry. Others called, quiet voices, curious, embarrassed, board members, HOA residents. Some just wanted advice. Others wanted to vent. I didn't get involved. I didn't need to. Because the foundation Karen built her little power trip on, it was already cracking. The collapse didn't come with fireworks. It came with a vote. Special HOA board meeting. Karen was asked to step down. She fought, of course, claimed she was the only one with vision. But vision doesn't help when your blueprint is soaked in fraud and your reputation is built on lies. She was removed, replaced by someone quieter. Someone who contacted me through an actual attorney, offering a formal apology on behalf of the board. I accepted it. Then I turned it into something useful. I sat down with the new president, not as friends, but as two people who understood boundaries. We talked about rerouting the access road through county-owned land nearby. It required more work, but at least it was legal. I helped them figure it out, not because I owed them anything, but because I was tired of war. And if helping them find their own road meant they'd never come near mine again, that was worth it. Weeks later, construction resumed, far away from my land. The trucks never returned to my driveway. The gates stayed locked. The gravel stayed clean. And Karen, she didn't disappear. She just shrank. Word was she still lived in the neighborhood, but now she was that neighbor, the one people avoided, the one whose clipboard was retired, whose opinions no longer mattered, her authority revoked, her story closed. And I didn't celebrate. But I did add one last touch to the stone marker at the entrance to my private road. Just beneath the words, "No HOA access," I carved a new line. Some fences are built out of wood, others out of lessons. That evening, I stood at the gate as the sun dipped behind the ridge. A deer crossed the gravel. No trucks, no shouting, no lawsuits, just peace, earned, defended, and completely mine.